The story of Little Claus and Big Claus. In an ancient village lived two men with the same name, both called Claus. To distinguish between them, the villagers referred to the one with 4 horses as Big Claus and the one with only 1 horse as Little Claus. This story is about their adventures. Little Claus worked for Big Claus throughout the week, lending him his only horse. Though Big Claus had 4 horses, he only helped out 1 day a week. On that day, Little Claus felt as if he owned 5 horses, whipping and driving them with great delight. As the village church bells rang and everyone dressed in their finest to attend service, Little Claus busied himself in the fields with his 5 horses, shouting out loud, "Go on, my 5 horses." Big Claus reminded him he should not say such things, as he only had 1 horse. However, when passers-by greeted him, Little Claus couldn't help but shout again, filled with pride and joy. Big Claus warned him to stop, or he would kill Little Claus's horse. Despite the warning, Little Claus shouted once more. Enraged, Big Claus killed the horse. Grieving the loss of his only horse, Little Claus skinned it, intending to sell the hide. He embarked on a long journey to sell the hide that led him through a dark forest. The weather worsened, and he lost his way. As darkness fell, Little Claus realized he was too far from home and not near any town. Fortunately, he spotted a farmhouse with closed windows but light shining through. Perhaps they'll let me stay the night, Little Claus hoped, approaching to knock on the door. Seeking shelter for the night, Little Claus knocked on the farmhouse door. The farmer's wife answered, but she frowned and refused him entry, explaining that her husband was away and that she could not let a stranger in. Disappointed, Little Claus said, "It seems I must sleep in the streets," before the farmer's wife shut the door. Nearby, Little Claus found a large haystack next to a small thatched cottage, its flat roof serving as a temporary refuge. "That will be my bed," he thought excitedly, climbing up to find a comfortable spot. A slightly ajar window allowed him to peek inside the cottage. Inside, a lavish dinner was spread out with wine, roast meat, and an enticing large fish, enjoyed only by the farmer's wife and a priest. Drooling with envy, Little Claus wished he could join in their feast. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves approached from afar. The farmer was returning home. The farmer was a good man but had an inexplicable aversion to seeing priests, becoming exceedingly irritable whenever he encountered them. The farmer's wife knew this and only dared to invite the priest over when her husband was away. With the husband's unexpected return, panic set in for both her and the priest. In haste, she urged the priest to hide inside a large chest, quickly hiding the food from the table and the stove to keep it from the husband's sight. Little Claus, watching from the rooftop of the cottage, saw the delicious food being hidden away and couldn't help but sigh, "Oh, my goodness." Hearing the noise, the farmer looked up and spotted him, asking, "Who's up there? Why are you lying there? Come down and join me inside." Little Claus climbed down, explained his predicament of being lost, and requested to stay the night. Of course, the farmer responded warmly, "But let's have something to eat first." Upon entering, the farmer's wife had prepared a large bowl of porridge. While the farmer enjoyed the meal, Little Claus thought about the hidden delicacies. He placed the bag containing the horsehide at his feet and pretended to step on it, making a noise accidentally. "Stop that," Little Claus whispered to the bag, deliberately stepping on it louder this time. Curious, the farmer asked, "What do you have in that bag?" "Oh, there's a magician inside," Little Claus answered casually. "He says we don't have to eat porridge. He can conjure a table full of delicious food for us." "Really?" The farmer's eyes lit up. He immediately opened the stove door, saw the hidden food, and was utterly convinced it was the magician's doing. His wife silently served the food. After the meal, Little Claus pretended the magician in the bag spoke again, claiming he could also produce wine. The farmer's wife reluctantly brought out the hidden wine. As the farmer enjoyed his drink, he asked, "Can your magician conjure a devil for us to see? I'm in a good mood, I won't be scared." "Yes, he can conjure up anything," Little Claus replied mischievously. "Don't you believe it, magician?" He stepped on the bag again, making it respond. "Hear that? He says he can. But the devil looks very ugly, just like the village priest." The farmer laughed heartily. "That would be truly hideous. I wouldn't say I like the sight of the priest. But since it's a devil, I don't mind. Let me see, but keep him away from me." Continuing his story, Little Claus said, "The magician says you should look in the chest by the wall. The devil is squatting in there. But make sure to hold the lid tight so he doesn't escape." The farmer, excited, approached Little Claus, saying, "Hold the lid down for me. I want to see inside." The farmer's wife had already hidden the priest in the chest. Inside, the priest sat, noticeably tense. The farmer carefully lifted a corner of the lid to sneak a peek inside and immediately exclaimed, "Oh!" jumping back. "It's true, he looks just like our village priest. My goodness, that's terrifying." They decided to drink a few glasses of wine to ease the suddenly tense atmosphere, chatting away until late into the night. "Sell me this magician," the farmer requested, willing to pay any price. Little Claus feigned difficulty. "Oh, I couldn't possibly. Think of how much help he's been to me. Oh, how I wish he were mine," said the farmer. Eventually, Little Claus pretended to be persuaded. "Well, you've been so kind to me tonight. Let's do as you say." He added, "Bring a big bag of money. The magician is yours, but I want it to be a full bag." "No problem," the farmer agreed, "but you must take that chest away. I don't want it in my house. Who knows if he's still in there?" Thus, Little Claus exchanged the bag with the dried horsehide for a whole bag of money, and even got a cart to transport the money and the chest. "Goodbye." Little Claus waved, departing with the cart full of money and the large chest. He stopped on a bridge and spoke loudly, ensuring the priest inside the chest could hear. "What should I do with this cumbersome chest? It's so heavy, like it's filled with stones. I'm too tired to move it. Maybe I should throw it into the river. If it floats to my house, that would be best. If not, there's nothing I can do." Pretending to throw the chest into the river, the priest inside hastily cried, "Don't throw it. Let me out." Little Claus feigned fear. "Oh my, he's still in there. I must throw him into the river quickly before he escapes." The priest panicked. "Don't throw it, don't throw it. Let me out, and I'll give you a big bag of money." Little Claus pretended to consider, then said, "Well, that can be arranged." So, he opened the chest. The priest quickly climbed out, pushing the empty chest into the river. Then, he took Little Claus home and gave him a whole bag of money. Together with the money from the farmer, Little Claus's cart was now laden with wealth. After dressing his grandmother in her finest clothes, Little Claus borrowed a horse and carefully placed her in a cart, securing her to prevent any jostling from the journey. They traveled through the forest, and as the sun rose, they arrived at an inn. Deciding to stop for a bite, Little Claus entered the inn, whose owner was wealthy but had a fiery temper with an aura of pepper and tobacco. "Good morning," greeted the owner, noticing Little Claus's attire. Little Claus explained his request for a cup of mead for his grandmother sitting outside in the cart, mentioning that the owner should speak loudly due to her poor hearing. The innkeeper agreed and took a large cup of mead outside, saying to the stiff figure in the cart, "Here's some mead from your grandson for you." The older woman, however, remained unresponsive. In frustration, the innkeeper splashed the mead on the older woman's face by increasing his volume and repeating himself several times to no avail. She toppled backward, having not been appropriately secured. Little Claus immediately accuses the innkeeper. Look what you've done. You've injured my grandmother. Look at the wound on her forehead. The innkeeper panicked. Oh dear, this is terrible. My temper has gotten the better of me. How about I compensate you with a large sum of money? I'll also take care of her funeral as if she were my own family. Please don't tell anyone. I don't want to lose my head over this. So, Little Claus received another sum of money, and the innkeeper took care of his grandmother's funeral with all due respect. With the money in hand, Little Claus went home and immediately sent a child to borrow a measuring cup from Big Claus. Big Claus was puzzled. What's going on? I thought I had dealt with him. Deciding to find out for himself, he brought the measuring cup to Little Claus. Seeing the pile of money with Little Claus, Big Claus was astounded. Where did you get all this money? Little Claus responded, You killed my grandmother, not me. I sold her and got this money. Hearing this, Big Claus thought it was a profitable venture. He took the same grim path with his grandmother, taking her body to the town and stopping in front of a pharmacist to inquire about a sale. The pharmacist was baffled. Who is this? Where did you get her from? It's my grandmother, Big Claus said without hesitation. I chopped her up to sell her for a good price. Horrified, the pharmacist exclaimed, My goodness! Are you mad? Don't speak of such things. It's a matter of life and death. He sternly warned Big Claus about the immorality and severity of his actions. Frightened, Big Claus quickly fled the scene, jumping onto his cart and hurrying home. Meanwhile, the pharmacist and bystanders thought him insane, letting him go without pursuit. Big Claus muttered to himself as he drove, This score isn't settled yet. Little Claus, you're going to pay for all of this. Upon arriving home, he quickly grabbed a large sack and stormed off to Little Claus's house, furiously declaring, You've made a fool of me again. First with my horses, now with my grandmother. It's all your fault. But you won't fool me any longer. He seized Little Claus, stuffed him into the sack, and slung it over his shoulder, saying as he walked, I'm going to drown you right now. Their journey to the river was long. Passing a church, the sound of the organ and beautiful hymns filled the air. Big Claus decided to leave the sack with Little Claus inside at the church entrance, thinking he could listen to a hymn before continuing on his way. After all, Little Claus couldn't escape, and the people inside wouldn't notice the sack. He then leisurely entered the church. Ah, dear Lord! Little Claus struggled and sighed within the sack. Despite his efforts to break free, he couldn't untie himself. At that moment, an old herdsman with white hair, carrying a long stick and herding a group of cattle, passed by. Unfortunately, some of the cows kicked the sack containing Little Claus, turning it over. "Oh, to think I will meet God at such a young age." Little Claus sighed again. "Ah, me, an old man," the herdsman lamented, "I've lived so long and still don't qualify for heaven." "Then open this sack for me," Little Claus shouted from inside. "You can take my place, and you'll get to heaven right away." "Really? I'd be glad to," the herdsman said excitedly. He quickly untied the sack, and Little Claus climbed out swiftly. "Could you please look after these cows for me?" the old man asked. After climbing into the sack, Little Claus tied it up tightly and left with the herd. Soon after, Big Claus came out of the church, lifting the sack onto his shoulder. He noticed it felt much lighter, as the older man inside weighed only half as much as Little Claus. "It's so easy to carry. Must be the hymns improving my mood," he thought as he walked. He reached the broad, deep river and threw the sack containing the old herdsman into the water, believing it to be Little Claus. Smirking, he shouted, "Stay there. You won't fool me anymore." At the crossroads, Big Claus encountered Little Claus herding a group of cattle, much to his astonishment. "What's going on?" Big Claus asked, puzzled. "Didn't I drown you? Where did you get these cattle?" "Indeed," Little Claus replied, "you threw me into the river about half an hour ago." "Oh, these cattle came from the seabed." Little Claus spun his tail as if telling a story. "Let me tell you what happened, and I must thank you for throwing me into the water. Now, my luck has truly turned. I was terrified inside that sack, but when I fell from the bridge into the cold river, with the wind whistling by my ears, I wasn't scared at all. I sank straight to the bottom, luckily landing on soft seaweed without a scratch on me." The sack opened by itself, and a beautiful girl, wearing a white gown and a wet green wreath in her hair, came to me. She took my hand and said, "You're Little Claus, right? Welcome. Here are a few cattle for you. Go 12 miles forward, and there's even more cattle waiting for you, all yours." Then I realized that the riverbed is a pathway for sea people, who use this channel to walk from the seabed to land, reaching the river's end. The riverbed was covered in beautiful flowers and lush green grass. Fish swam by my ears like birds in the air. The scenery was breathtaking. Cattle grazed on the hills and in the ditches, all fat and sleek, a beautiful sight indeed. Big Claus listened, dumbfounded and incredulous, asking, "Then why come back at all? If it's that beautiful underwater, I would never return." Little Claus's story, filled with imagination and fantasy, turned a simple escape into a magical adventure, painting a beautiful picture of the underwater world. This tale not only piqued Big Claw's curiosity but also made him envious of Little Claw's fate. "Oh, you're so lucky!" Big Claws exclaimed, envious. "If only I could go to the seabed, could I get some cattle too?" "Perhaps," Little Claws responded. "But I can't carry you to the river, you'll have to go yourself. If you climb into a sack, I can help by throwing you in." Half believing, half doubting, Big Claws decided to try. "All right, but if I don't get those seabed cattle, I'll come back and teach you a lesson." "Let's not be so serious," Little Claws attempted to lighten the mood as they headed to the river. The eager cattle rushed to drink upon reaching the water. "See, they can't wait to get back underwater." Little Claws pointed at the herd. "It's my turn now," Big Claws said, growing impatient. "Remember, if I don't find those sea animals, you'll have it coming." So, he climbed into a large sack that a cow had carried. "Put a stone in it, or I'm afraid I won't sink." Obediently, Little Claws added a large stone to the sack and tied it tightly. With a strong push, Big Claws and the sack rolled into the river, disappearing beneath the surface. "I'm afraid you won't find those cattle," Little Claws murmured as he started herding the cattle back home, leaving only ripples on the water's surface. On this peaceful night, may all beautiful dreams surround you, cradling you into a night of good sleep. Good night.